in this town. See, me and the boys, we don't like it. So we're getting up and going down. Hiding low, looking right to left. If you see us coming, I think it's best to move away. Do you hear what I say from under my breath? Tonight there's going to be a jailbreak somewhere in the town. Tonight there's going to be a jailbreak, so don't you be around. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley and Richter coming at you, blowing things up, making a mess.
Jailbreak? Is that what you did today? You participated in a jailbreak?
Yeah.
Did Jailhouse Rock? Elvis came to sing?
That was not Elvis.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Folsom Blues? Was that Folsom Blues?
No.
Don't tell me. Don't
Okay.
tell me. What other jail songs? I fought the law and the law won.
Yeah.
That wasn't it,
That's
though.
not it either.
I don't know. So I'm to try to guess who sings. Is Jailbreak? Is that what the song's called?
Yes.
Jailbreak, huh? I need a hint.
Well, this is one you should know.
I should know this.
This is, a good old classic rock tune. English band.
Elton John?
No.
Okay.
No, but they were rather slender.
Slender.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a hint. So slender somehow was in the name, huh?
Yes. Well,
a synonym for that?
maybe.
Let's see. Who do you got? You got the. Who else is from England? You got the Rolling Stones, right? Are they from England?
They are.
Okay, but it's not them.
No.
Okay.
They were also very slender, but that's not who we're looking for.
I mean,
Mick Jagger still falls over when it gets windy. So.
Well, I mean, if he'd wear a shirt that wasn't 4 sizes too small, it would help too. So I'm stumped.
That's Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
I think I dated her back in college.
Really?
No.
Oh, boy.
Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
That's a famous band there? I mean, famous as the
here
Ramones?
too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Look, The Boys Are Back in Town. Have you heard that one?
I think so.
Yeah. You know, that.
That's what, NSYNC? That's NSYNC?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. The Boys Are Back in Town, Jailbreak, Bad Reputation. They're good band.
Okay, that is sounding more familiar.
The late singer Phil Lynott, bass player extraordinaire.
Oh, why not?
We miss him, but
no,
yeah.
The good ones have a limited shelf life, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It seems like. Thin Lizzy, everyone, check it out on Spotfly, and
yes.
Wherever else we are. Don't tell me, Chat Snap.
Yeah.
And everything else. You
Right.
can find all of our stuff.
Oh, boy.
Instagram. So we have fun with my lack, and we've been getting tweets about my lack of technology.
Technological savvy. Yes.
They're always fun.
Part of it's an act, just which part?
Well, I mean that's the great thing about is blurring the lines between reality and it's kind of like a good Broadway play or a good wrestling match.
Or
you blur
Nick Nolte in general.
Well, yeah, same thing. Or Gary Busey, they're the same person.
Yeah.
I can't tell them apart. It's like you have Vlade Divac and Yakov Smirnoff. I mean, which one's which? Well, one's 7'1" and the other's 5'8". Other than that, you wouldn't know. That was an Arsenio Hall joke back in the day. So, I mean, whoop, whoop, whoop.
Okay. My goodness.
I used to like Arsenio Hall because he always had sports people on and wrestlers.
Yeah.
So that's what made it. I'd stay up the summers. I remember my parents watching Johnny Carson every Friday night. Mm-hmm. And I'd catch them all in the summer. I'd catch all the reruns. So.
Yeah, I used to watch that show too, I think. And
which one, Arsenio or Johnny Carson?
I watched them both a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back when you only had 5 channels, I mean, like I say, it's that. And remember, I told you about all the preachers I used to watch. And, success in life. So. Anyway, Jay, interesting, some developments going on. If you want to go back in time, I believe last summer, we did episode 71, and that's, of course, in our archives at Lisbon, Portugal. No.
Or for those of you who want to find it, my goodness. COMM Solutions, mn.libsyn, that's LIBSYN.com.
Yes.
Or you can just go to our blog and search by that name, and you'll find it as well.
Absolutely. We did an episode on this obsession with renaming lakes or streets or schools, making them politically correct. Lake Calhoun, the lake formerly known as Calhoun, like Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, the lake formerly known as Calhoun.
Well, it's crazier than that, though. I mean, really, we could say it's formerly Calhoun, formerly Bde Maka Ska, formerly Calhoun again.
Bde Maka Ska.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just had to have bidet in there. Okay.
I don't think it's spelled the same as the deal from the Crocodile Dundee.
I was going to say, that's the first time I ever saw a bidet in my life, was Crocodile. For washing your backside, right? Or when he yells to...
It's a boot washer.
Hey, that's not a knife. Great movie. Anyway, is in the news the Court of Appeals ruled a few days ago that the DNR did not have the legal authority to change a name. And, boy, they didn't like that in St. Paul, boy.
Oh, no.
The House Democrats got in big-time action. Been following it on Ryan Winkler's Twitter page. He just loves it when I comment.
The Fonz.
Yeah. He loves it when I comment.
Yeah.
Because I made a suggestion on his Twitter page.
You did?
I said, since if we're going to change names and make them politically correct, then I propose that the Democrats need to change their name, because they are the party of slavery. They are the party of Jim Crow laws. They're the party of the Ku Klux Klan, as far as I'm concerned. And if that's the standard, we're going to go by, then their name alone is racist and offensive. So I move that they change their name. I mean, we'll see if the Fonz. We'll see if the Fonz likes that. I don't think it's gonna.
Probably.
Is there a strand of hair out of place? Yeah, I don't think he's gonna like that.
No, I think he jumped the shark a long time ago.
I think the shark is 100 miles away. To be honest,
It swam
still
off.
eating Robert Shaw somewhere.
Swam off to die somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they're not happy, in Minneapolis, and they're not happy. I don't think that's going to even. Governor Walz has not quite jumped on board to the legislation. I'm sure he'll come around,
Right.
because he's just kind of weak.
Shouldn't pass the Senate.
It shouldn't, but there's enough wishy-washy people, in my opinion, that I think it's got a good shot.
Yeah.
There's a Save Lake Calhoun page apparently got hacked the other day that they're going after their free speech. The president of the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board has, quote, no intention of spending any public resources honoring Vice President Calhoun's blood-soaked legacy of systematic violence against all of our communities. Boy, tell you what, you show your history. The board's president, Brad Bourne, Bourn, Bjorn,
like Jason Bourne.
No E.
What? Oh,
it looks like Bjorn Borg.
well, there's no J though, right? It's Bourn.
Yeah, is that
Bourne?
Bourne. Brad Bourne was rather opinionated on it.
Yes.
So I'm sure it'll be appealed higher, but again, the ruling was based on who had the authority to do it, which of course is, I'm sure, lost on these people.
Right.
So once again, we're fighting this once, and of course, the House of Representatives taking time out from their busy day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're just be upset they can't leave Friday at noon, probably. So they're all ticked off about this ruling. So sanity may prevail for the lake formerly known as Calhoun. We'll see.
We'll see. And here's the crazy thing, though. I mean, you have a lake that's contained within one city. This isn't a multi-city lake. This is contained within Minneapolis. Now, Minneapolis, I believe, should be making the decision because it's in Minneapolis.
Well, if that's the case, we'll call it Lake 1, Lake 2, Lake 3, Lake 4. There's no acceptable name that could...
They can't count past 4.
Oh, that's true. Maybe past their fingers and toes.
But here's the thing. This should be a lesson to all of you that live in Minneapolis. You have somebody on the park board that isn't willing to waste one drop of energy to keep something that the name that it seems like most of the community wants to keep the name.
I think most of the community doesn't know anything about John Caldwell Calhoun.
No.
I think what they know is based on garbage that they've heard from people like this idiot. Well, and nobody is going to, I mean, who's been scandalized? I mean, I say this not kiddingly, okay? Like I said a couple of weeks ago, I took a Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox to school with the Confederate flag on it.
Right.
Okay. Now, today, if that happened, I'd probably be suspended and my parents would be charged with a hate crime.
Right.
But no one was victimized by that.
Mm-hmm.
So to take the name of a lake as some sort of step forward in our cleansing of history, really just shows how history illiterate people are to begin with.
Right.
I mean, I'd like to ask Mr. Bourne if he can name Vice President Calhoun other than the fact that he supported slavery, which, by the way, the majority of them and South.
Right.
I mean, remember something. When we talk about, like, the American flag and the Confederate, get it right for a second.
That's true.
I mean, slavery existed during the Civil War in the North.
Yeah.
So why don't we get our facts? Of course, see, I'll tell Mr. Bourne, see, the Civil War happened in the 1860s, which he probably doesn't know. And, Jefferson Davis, I'm guessing the only thing he knows about him is he was the evil president of that horrible Confederacy.
Or that his last name is Hogg.
Yeah. You might know that, too, pretty much. So, I mean, there's... you laugh at this, but I mean, we're going to get to a point where, Polk County, Minnesota will be renamed, and we're going to get to, we're going to get to a time where, I think we're going to get to a time, maybe even in our lifetimes, where people who at some point didn't support gay marriage are going to get their names cleansed. Mm-hmm. People who didn't support open borders are going to get their names cleansed. People who don't support transgender, bi, trans, whatever, which I call the new bullies on the block, they're going to get their names cleansed from history. I mean, where's it going to end? Whoever you disagree with, we can just take and erase. You can always pick on those who can't defend themselves. Mm-hmm. So see where that ends up.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it's not just this guy on the Park and Rec board. Also, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry over Twitter said that he's going to stick to Bde Maka Ska, which he calls its rightful name, according to the Pioneer Press. So, Minneapolis, this is where I was going with this. You're up in arms about this. You don't agree with changing the name. You want it to be Calhoun. There are so many of you across the city of Minneapolis that have signs in your yards that say, don't bulldoze our neighborhood, change the comprehensive plan. But you keep putting the same people from the same party in office over and over and over and over and over and over since early 1900s, at least. I don't remember the last time there's been anyone that isn't a Democrat. I'm not talking about putting a Republican. I'm talking about anybody that's not a Democrat or the Green Party into one of those seats on the city council.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that CD5 has been, or what you call that, has been blue since the 50s. I don't know if it goes back further than that. But Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think there's a fear there of being, the left. I argue constantly wants to shut down free speech, shut down anybody they don't agree with, and I think you're going to see, recriminations against people. You see it on college campuses. You see it where there's no free speech whatsoever. Right. You see boycotts of Chick-fil-A. And
they're starting to turn on other liberals, too.
Oh, well, hey. Especially with Joe Biden in the race. I mean, he's getting attacked from the left more than anybody else. I mean, just a total joke. I mean, and I think, Biden, I think, will be fizzled out by the summer. That's my opinion. I'm going to say one thing about that, too. I just want to say one thing about that.
Okay.
Two things, actually. One, I love how the economy is going so well that the vice president has to change the metrics on how we're going to decide what, know. And the metrics do have some issues. I mean, if you go into how the government figures out unemployment, it's not that simple as X amount of people working. But anyhow. And then the second thing is I'm going to predict neither him nor Sanders are the candidate. No old white guy is going to run the Democratic Party of today. I don't know who it will be. Look for somebody at 4, 5, 6% right now. That is who is going to be the nominee.
You don't think Buttigieg is going to be the guy?
I think he could be. I think he fits. We talked about identity politics. He check marks. Everything except being a minority is the only thing he doesn't checkmark.
And he is getting attacked for that.
Yeah.
He's saying, people
white.
are saying, he's just another white man.
I mean, I always had a rule, if you're getting attacked, okay, there's a reason you're getting attacked. If nobody feared him, he'd just be another Amy Klobuchar in this race.
Right.
He'd be somebody down at 0.1 raising 50 cents a week, and nobody would be paying any attention.
He'd be John Hickenlooper.
Yeah. If you want to make a comparison on the right, he's Alan Keyes if he's not getting attacked.
Right.
Okay, but if you're getting attacked, that means there's a segment somewhere that you're either drawing people from or there's a fear that you're going to. Mm-hmm. And if you ask me, where he's getting attacked is from other people everybody is probably to Biden's left, which isn't saying that he's right.
No, he's no John F. Kennedy.
No, and he's no Harry Truman. I mean, he's nothing like that. But to today's Democratic Party, where he was in the 90s, that's evil now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've said it before. He voted for the Defense of Marriage Act, voted for the Iraq War, voted for the Patriot Act. He's going to have to answer for things like that. And I think that's way out of step. And I think President Obama won't endorse him. I mean, which is kind of a fumble, I think, on Biden's part. I mean, it's hard to get in the race and not have the support of the person you were with.
Well, and then there's all the stuff with Ukraine and China with his son and John Kerry's son.
It's interesting. The media doesn't get around to doing any investigating on that until the vice president's actually in the race.
Right. Didn't
investigate that 5 years ago like they could have.
No.
We wait till Biden's officially in the race, and now we're going to he's already run for president twice, but now we're going to give him his anal exam.
I know. It's ridiculous. Here the guy is doing this shady stuff. I mean, getting people in government positions fired, getting these billion-dollar deals for his son's company with no experience in the field and
you might as well give Biden the last name Kennedy.
Might as well.
Anyhow, I mean, look for somebody in single digits.
And a giant either. She is going to be the vice presidential candidate, I think. I think it's a good shot.
I got my thoughts on that. I would bet the ring that it's not somebody running.
That could be too.
I think you're not going to want to go back and forth and throwing mud on each other. And then you're going to want a fresh face, not involved in that. You're going to strategically pick it, depending on who the presidential candidate is. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Tim Kaine was a strategic choice by Mrs. Clinton. I think
bad choice.
It was a bad choice. He stunk. But, I think Joe Lieberman was a strategic choice by Al Gore. I think you're going to see, I think Al Gore himself was a strategic choice. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to pick somebody not in this field right now. You're going to want somebody not your rival. I mean, there was a lot of calls on President Trump to pick somebody around him, and I think he did the right thing not doing that.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
But it works sometimes with like President George Bush. H.W. Bush. Yeah. They ran against each other and happened.
Right.
So,
but I think that Robert Francis is out. I think
I don't think so. I think Robert Francis has a legitimate shot.
I don't.
To be the candidate. Okay, but again, to me, that is I've said this before. Not being known is an advantage and a disadvantage. Vice President Biden knows Bernie Sanders, half of its name ID.
Right.
But that has its liabilities.
Right.
So how do you play that? Mm-hmm. So if people don't have an opinion on you, you have the ability to shape that, and you better, your opponent will.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, the horse race, I mean, always interesting as boring as it can be, always interesting to handicap right now, but
yeah.
I'm just going to stand by that Biden and Sanders will be gone. Sanders will stay in the race, but
yeah, he will,
because he's just all about himself. But I think, and we're going to talk about him today, kind of indirectly. But I don't see the party going there. I think the activists want a young, 40-something person. I think they want to draw that contrast with the president. I think they want it to be a step, quote, forward in their minds. And I don't see how Biden could be the champion of that. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I guess we will see. We will see. But our topic today is concerning something a lot of these presidential candidates have been talking about.
Bernie Sanders in particular, who's the only one who's really outright said it,
right? That
I can find. And if others have, if the people down at 1% have said it, I can't find it anywhere.
Right. But it has significant local impacts.
Right, which aren't being talked about. Surprise, surprise, there's no investigative journalism, there's no follow-up, there's no impact reporting, there's no look at this community here and what could happen. No, it's up to Community Solutions to pick up where these bozos leave off all the time. All right, I just blew my stack there, okay?
So what are we talking about? The left is constantly trying to change the way that we run our elections. A, they want more voters, and B, they want to just fundamentally change everything that they don't like, and so we're not talking so much about. I mean, a little bit about federal, but more about the state and especially the local elections, which are run, generally by the state because you have to go through Secretary of State's office and all that. But we have seen even localities that are changing the laws. And so talking about like allowing felons to vote and allowing illegal immigrants to vote as well our voting system is kind of under attack right now, and what kind of impacts that's going to have on us locally.
Well, so, I think let's take the first part first.
Yes,
felons to vote. There's a couple different ways to look at that. There's been a lot of talk about, if somebody serves their time and at what point do they re-enter the voting process? And I think that's something very separate from what I have heard from, I'm just use Bernie Sanders as a good example, who wants to let prisoners vote from inside prison.
Yes.
Now, it's one thing to serve your time and not reoffend for a certain amount of time and get this right back and this right back and this right back. The Democrats are fine taking away a felon's Second Amendment rights.
Yeah.
Or anybody else's for that matter. But voting is sacred. You can't mess with that, which is an interesting way to look at the Constitution. Now, my whole deal is in our whole deal, Jay, is
Yes.
looking at this from the lowest common denominator. Where does this impact? Sanders' tunnel vision is all on himself and all on federal, all on running for president, and I just want to play out the scenario that prisoners are allowed to vote from inside prison.
Yes.
Now, I assume this is prisoners of all kinds. I mean, he said he'd allow ISIS to vote.
Yeah, the Boston bomber.
Yeah, we'll go capture some guys, bring them over here, and let them vote. Now, here's an interesting question I'd propose to Mr. Sanders. If we captured 10,000 Russians and they were all going to vote for Donald Trump, what would Bernie Sanders' opinion be there?
All right.
You know, we talk about the integrity of our voting system, but I'm sure there he'd probably, he might lose 3 more hairs or something.
All right.
So there's, or maybe comb it for once. So interesting how, I'm sure that would be something different. Whoever gets convicted here under what was Trump's attorney's name? Who's I can't think of it, but should he let him vote from inside jail? And I'm sure Mr. Sanders would have a different opinion. But I want to play this out.
Okay.
I want to just think about what would happen if prisoners were allowed to vote while they're in prison. And pick your worst criminal, sitting in prison right now. If they're allowed to vote, I don't know who that would be.
I don't either. We have recently lost
poor Charlie Manson.
Yes, Charlie Manson. So
I don't know who it becomes either. But I'm going to take a famous.
I guess it could be. There was a list of people I remember that came out. Whether it's the Boston bomber or Ted Kaczynski.
Who was Timothy McVeigh's partner? Terry Nichols.
Yeah, Terry Nichols.
Yeah, we'll let Terry, Oklahoma City bombing planner. We'll let him vote. Yeah. So
why not?
That's what America's all about, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to take the Stillwater prison. Now, I wonder how many people know the Stillwater prison is actually in Bayport, Minnesota, which is just south of Stillwater for those of you who went to public school. And do you know how many prisoners are housed right now at Stillwater without looking? Because I know you peek.
Yeah, I do.
Without looking, how many are there currently? Well, now, this is a maximum security prison, okay?
Right.
These people aren't there for getting a DWI or being late on some child support payments. These people are there for, most of them are there for serious offenses.
I don't know, a couple thousand.
You peaked.
Well, we kind of talked about it before the show, too.
We touched on it.
Yeah.
Because, you and I don't rehearse. We're Sinatra. We do one take. 1,612.
Yeah.
Okay. It's in Bayport, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
How many registered voters are there in Bayport, Minnesota?
Oh, goodness. Bayport.
Not the biggest town.
No, it's not. I don't know what the population is. I could find out. I'm going to say they have around 3,000.
Okay. They've got about 3,000 residents.
Okay. So voters, then, they would have about 1,200, wouldn't they?
1,518.
Wow.
So, if prisoners were allowed to vote, their mayor got about 800 votes. The hell with going to the county fair or the local farmers market.
Right.
You're going to have to get inside prison and go to the cafeteria and give your campaign speech. We might have to have the endorsing conventions. They might have to be there.
Would it be like the Blues Brothers where you would have to surround that with like chicken wire and stuff?
Yeah, oh yeah. While they're singing Tammy Wynette.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might stand by your man.
They wouldn't be throwing anything at them.
A few of those bottles had to get through. You'd be getting all sorts of stuff thrown at you. So there's more people in that prison than there are registered voters. Now you can't, Jay, I mean, talk about swaying an election. We're not talking about 1%, 2%, which could sway an election anyway.
Right.
So the majority, and this is an adult facility, so there aren't children there,
Right.
nobody under 18. So if all of those folks were eligible to vote, they would outpopulate the registered voters of Bayport.
Yeah, I mean, if they all voted, but I imagine in a controlled environment like this, they could get most of them to vote. Just like with
Sure, you don't have to go anywhere.
With nursing homes, they bring the ballots to the residents.
Absolutely.
You can bring the ballots to the inmates in a position like
talk
this.
Talk about absentee balloting, early voting.
Yeah. Everybody get down to the cafeteria and vote.
Or hey, you want a little extra visitor this month?
Yeah.
You better get down here and vote for whoever the police union endorsed over here. How do you have a private ballot when you're in prison?
Yeah.
Nothing's. You don't shower in private.
Right.
So how does that? How is how does something like that work?
I don't know.
Election integrity.
I mean, sure, maybe you wheel one of those voting machines in there and you have an election judge. And
who's the election judge?
Exactly.
The guy, who is it? Andy Dufresne and Red. Or which one's the election judge? So I mean, you can see right away how. But again, I mean, nobody's talking about this.
No.
Nobody's understanding what could possibly happen if something like this goes through. Let's try another one.
Okay.
Just because I'm on a roll here. Moose Lake.
Ooh.
Now, you know where Moose Lake is, don't
I
you,
have
Jay?
been there many a time. It was in the general area. That's kind of where my family started in Minnesota after they came to here from Sweden.
Really?
Yeah, they were kind of in that Willow River, Moose Lake.
Willow River's on here too.
Mattawa area, and there's some old family ruins out there. There's a lake named after my family out that way, and so Elstrom Lake, yeah.
Huh, cool.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, you'll be glad to know that in Moose Lake, the correctional facility houses 1,013 prisoners. Guess what? The amount of registered voters in Moose Lake?
Oh, it's not a very big town. I'm trying to remember if it's 1,200 people total, so maybe around 700 registered voters.
Okay, you're a little low this time.
Okay.
It's 980 registered voters. It's actually about 2,000 people in Moose Lake.
Okay.
If you don't know where that is, that's between Hinckley and Duluth on that drive. Willow River, same thing, because there's a facility there as well.
Yeah, Moose Lake is just north of the casino, Black Bear Casino,
Absolutely.
off of 35.
So Moose Lake. So once again, more prisoners than registered voters.
Wow.
Willow River, for example,
very
only has 415 people.
Yes. Yes, it does.
The hell with registered voters.
Yeah.
And there's 163 at the Willow River Prison.
Wow.
So, I mean, even a city like Lino Lakes, where you've got 1,257 prisoners at the Lino Lakes prison there. And I had it here where I mean, there's a lot more people in Lino Lakes, but there's enough to sway an election.
Right. I mean, Lino Lakes is probably about 23,000. I think it's a generally the size of it's like your average.
I think so,
Twin
too. I
Cities.
think that they actually are an off-year election, if I remember. I might have to go to, I think I was at a different page for that here on the old, I think they're an odd-year election, so I'll have to go back and get their info, damn odd years.
Which is odd.
Yeah, how many times we got
Yes.
to tell you that those odd years are no good?
Where 25% of the people come out and vote.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you talk about, wait a minute, Jay.
You could totally overwhelm a system.
We just stumbled onto something.
Yes.
I mean, we make fun all the time. Lionel Lakes has 12,624 registered voters.
Yeah.
Registered voters, not
Right,
population. Okay. However, if you go back to the 2017 election, the mayor's race had about 1,800 votes.
Wow.
So if there's 1,200 people in prison, 1,800 votes in the mayor's race, what do you think that could mean for said race?
Easily flip something. You could easily sway it.
Oh, not even close.
Right.
So but this is the kind of unintended consequence. This is the problem with liberalism, generally speaking. It's good, well-intentioned folks who, when you flush out and think about what they're proposing, you really get a bad product in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And now again, and I want to say something too. This is separate from, like I said before, whether somebody should be allowed to vote after X amount of time.
Yeah.
Whether nonviolent people should have their, voting rights restored when they get out. I tend to think they should.
Yes.
But I favor a certain amount of time to not reoffend.
Right. Have to go through probation.
Right.
And all that
Get
stuff.
off of that and get out of a halfway house.
Yep.
And gradually re-enter society. Because ultimately, I want them to be successful people. I don't.
Yes.
Who they vote for is their business.
Absolutely.
I just am concerned that there's this fast track to not only get people leaving. Because what do you want to bet? We can sit here and poke fun at Bernie Sanders all we want, but things that he's advocated for a long time have now become mainstream Democratic ideas. He was talking about a living wage 25 years ago when no one else was.
Right. Well, all these young socialists have come up and embraced these things, and in some instances even gone further than he has gone.
And I think presidential candidates are trying to out Bernie.
Right.
So
yeah, well, he got a significant amount of the Democratic support last time around against Hillary. He did, and so
part of that. I'm a little skeptical of that because with two candidates, it's not 20. There's a little difference. I think there was an anti-Hillary feeling. I think there were some anomalies to that, but you're right. I think it was something like 45% of the total primary voters, however they figure that out with caucus and all that, and with how every state allocates things. He did have a significant portion of the delegates, not enough to move beyond the first ballot, but he did hold some sway, and whatever you want to say about him, because you could make the same, I would make the same case with a person like Ron Paul on the right, that there was something ignited by their presence in a campaign.
There's a similarity, but here's where there's the difference. And
there's a lot of difference.
Well, I know. And Ron Paul was successful to a point, but he still didn't, I don't think, have Bernie-level support. And the reason being is that our kids are not taught about the difference between capitalism and socialism. This is a guy who honeymooned in the Soviet Union, a guy who has spoke out on behalf of socialist and communist dictators across the globe.
Who honeymoons in the Soviet Union?
Bernie Sanders.
Who goes to a gulag?
Well, I don't know if he would do a gulag.
Oh, I thought he went to Siberia or something.
But this is the problem, and we need to sit our kids down and make them watch Rocky IV and War Games. And
he dies. Right, but again, let me point something out. If you're 24 years old, okay, you have no concept of, like when I was growing up, the Cold War was very much in people's minds. The Berlin Wall was still up. You're 24 years old. You read that in a history book. You didn't live through it.
Right.
There's no, even something like 9/11. How much do you remember from when you were 5 or 6 years old?
everything.
Oh, baloney. I remember the Dukes of Hazzard, and I remember going to the Metrodome for the first time. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
I don't even remember kindergarten. I know I was there. I had my Pete Rose haircut. Okay, but
I remember a bit from preschool and kindergarten.
I do remember a kid who ate glue. That's one thing I do remember.
There's always one, isn't there? And
Thought it was
was
snot
not
coming
me.
down? Yeah, okay.
It was not me.
But, there's so you don't have any of that as a perceptive. I mean, to you, the Soviet Union is something that, that's an abstract thing in your mind.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, if we can make a case for how many people, and their photos, how many people did Stalin kill? How many people
Stalin,
did Mao
the worst
kill?
dictator ever.
Mao was pretty dang bad, too.
It's close.
I think Mao killed more people than Stalin
Perhaps.
did.
I think Stalin's system, though, is something Mao copied.
But and even looking at a guy like Pol Pot, who killed a greater percentage of his own people than
Bde Amin.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look in any of these countries, and I don't know how you come up with socialism or however you want to define it.
Yeah.
Because remember, ultimately, what communism is destroying all opponents.
Yes.
And that's ultimately, I feel, where the left is headed. That if you don't agree with them, they want to shut you down, put you in a box, and throw you in a river. Now, I'm being figuratively there, kind of.
Yeah.
But, I mean, why is that a direction we want to go? But you're right. I mean, these young people today, I mean, they open a history book, and not only does a cloud of dust come up, but also, what does it say? I mean, what do these history books say nowadays?
Nothing.
I've said this before.
Yeah.
You know what a Civil War buff I am.
Yes.
Here's how I think people ought to study the Civil War. Read what Southerners wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you really, because history's written by the victors.
Yeah.
Read somebody like Shelby Foote. You Civil War buffs will know who I'm talking about. Read, I can't remember who wrote it, but the biggest works on Robert E. Lee, which were written in the 1930s. Even read Ulysses S. Grant's memoirs if you want a down-to-earth, honest. And one thing Grant was brutally honest. I mean, I know he was a Northerner, but I mean, read that part of it as well to get a real feel for what went on during that war. Not the cleansed garbage that you get in the 2 weeks that you study it the entire time you're in public school.
Right.
And spend the rest of the time talking about gays, on TV. Okay, so I mean, and I think it's the same thing here. You want to find out what the Holocaust was about. Okay, and this is Holocaust denying is going to get big because that generation's dead.
Right.
I mean, in 10 years they're all gone. They're almost all gone now. But I mean, where's it going to go? It's going to go into academia. And I think Holocaust denying is going to become a big issue because of the people who went through it are all going to be gone.
And that's where we need to turn to some of these other atrocities. After the Holocaust, we had the things that went on under Stalin. We had the things that went on under Mao. We have the things that went on under Pol Pot. We have the things that Castro did. And we need to be able to pull those stories out.
And Castro's a hero.
Yeah.
Hugo Chavez today is a hero to some. Read Noam Chomsky, and he has just nothing but glowing things to say about Chavez. So, I mean, there's... look, we could talk all day about that. I think that getting back to the topic at hand, what is this ultimately? Ultimately, this is a power grab.
Yes.
Ultimately, this is, okay, I can't persuade... I'm Bernie Sanders, and I can't persuade enough people to see it my way. And he has a right to his opinion. He has a right to free speech. He has as much of a right to that as anybody.
Yes.
But he can't get enough people to vote for him. So what's he doing? This is his plan to expand his base.
Yes. Go into the prisons.
Right.
That's a good plan.
Why don't we call it what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that really what he's saying? What he's saying is that I can't get enough people to support me, so I'm going to go find them. I'm going to go create instead of doing what he has shown he can do, which is get people out to spread. He can do that.
Yes.
But I don't know if he's tapped out, not enough $25 donations. Maybe he needs pajamas or something for his campaign. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it leads us right into another thing, which is, we already mentioned it, is illegal immigrants getting the rights to vote. And I would say we're there already on that. I've been an election judge, and I am going to tell you straight out that illegal votes have knowingly been cast and knowingly been counted. Now, I'll leave it at that.
Well, recount it just a little bit.
Well,
we don't need a 10-minute.
Okay, but I'll give you a 2-minute synopsis.
Because I don't think we've ever really talked about that.
We haven't on the air. Okay. Yeah. I made the mistake, Jay. Is it when you when you don't know what to do as a person in the party.
Yeah.
Today I'm so much smarter, and I would never do what I did.
Yeah.
I met Janet Byhofer,
yeah,
who's a friend and a great lady. And she was recruiting election judges. And I said to Janet, she said, well, and I didn't know it was a paid position or anything like that. And I said, oh, really? It paid like, a Happy Meal an hour. But I just said, well, sign me up. And the truth is, you want to sign up with your city or something. I didn't know that. And when you sign up with the Republican Party, they're going to put you where they don't have people.
Right.
So where's that? Take a guess.
Inner city Minneapolis. So I had to go down. I voted right away in the morning. This is the Obama-McCain election. And I'm getting to the Frank and Coleman thing. I went down to where I did this for about 3 hours. And I saw two things that, and before this, I was kind of, voter fraud and hanging chads. And I remember all of that. And I don't want to say I didn't think it was real, but I didn't understand same-day registration. I hate to say it, but I was a little bit ignorant of the problem. I feel stupid. I felt real stupid then. I don't feel so bad now because actually the majority doesn't understand it. I can't really blame them. There's a lot of laws to follow, and registering to vote every time you move, and voting in a primary and a line to register and that sort of thing. I know I'm taking too much time, but the two things I saw, and I'll sum it up very fast. I saw a busload, and I mean busload, of foreign people. I'm guessing from Somalia or some other African kind of country. None of them spoke English. None of them were registered to vote. None of them could prove their age either. And I would say there were some questionable people. I would have carded them in a bar, or buying tobacco or at a casino. And they had one person there, a white lady, who was vouching, quote unquote, which I didn't know you could do, that they lived at whatever building. I don't remember, but in Minneapolis, some apartment building or something. They were brought in by a bus. Clearly it was a union or the DFL who paid for the bus that brought them in, and they were allowed to register and they were allowed to vote. They were being coached, I thought, as to vote for. I saw people pointing. People had writing. I thought I saw writing on somebody's sleeve or something like that. And then there was somebody who I was a secondhand witness to this. One of the friend of ours, who we both know, I won't say his name on the air because I don't want to out him, was coming in as I was leaving. And what he witnessed was a person who I found out later was a DFL operative or field organizer who was offering to vouch for anybody who would vote for Al Franken. That he would go in and vouch for them. And I testified to this at the legislature. That's how I met Tom Emmer, actually, for the first time, because he was the ranking member of the government voter ID bill. I don't remember what committee that was, but so those are the two things I witnessed in one precinct. There's 4,108 precincts in Minnesota, so you don't know what's going on everywhere. I'm sure that wasn't happening in Minnesota.
Whatever. But I mean, and I'm sure people in prison can prove their residency. But these are the kinds of things happening, and this was happening in 2008. I have to assume it's happening now. Voter laws in Minnesota haven't changed. If anything, they're more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, they're more. People are more afraid to,
check on somebody's validity.
Right. I mean,
Yes.
you're just immediately accused of being a racist or something like that. So
Right.
those are the things that the only. I mean, I'm sure other people could tell a million stories, but I've seen that. And if you make no distinctions between illegal immigrants and immigrants, you're going to get more of the same. I mean, just as an example, Jay, there's 39 million people in California.
Yes.
Approximately 2 million of them are illegal aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't tell me zero of them this is California.
Right.
You can't tell me zero of them have ever voted.
That would actually be true. There is an article I saw by the AP talking about San Francisco giving illegal aliens the right to vote, not in federal elections or in state elections, but specifically in local elections, school board. And so what they do, non-citizens must provide their address and date of birth to register. And
California doesn't have same-day voter registration, though.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So they're relieved of the busload coming and vouching on the day of the election.
Right. So they're trying to register people. Yeah, they're trying to register people in advance. But once you get them into the polling place, I mean, do you give them a special provisional ballot that's just for the school, or do you how many of those, once they're in the polling place, get to vote for other things as well?
If even one does, it throws the legitimacy of the election completely.
Yeah, a lot of cities in Maryland also have allowed for non-citizen voting. And so this is something that they're trying to do. Amherst, Cambridge, Newton, and Brookline have advanced laws to allow non-citizen voting in Massachusetts.
Love how they call it non-citizen vote.
Right. Instead of just illegal voting.
Yeah. Like I say, let's imagine it's 2 million Russians coming in to vote for Trump in California.
Right.
I doubt that they would be allowed to.
Right. Well, think about it, and they want these people to vote because most of them live in cities.
They cluster.
Right. In fact, there's an article, Pew Research wrote that 20 metro areas are home to 6 in 10 unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. So, and surprisingly, Minneapolis is not one of those.
Yeah. Well,
really,
I'm sure the goal is to get there.
Absolutely. But, I mean, you got Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Miami.
Washington, D.C., the nation's capital.
Yeah. Miami, Atlanta, Charlotte, North Carolina, which I thought was odd.
Yeah,
Chicago.
Miami's had this problem for a long time.
Houston, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver, Phoenix, and then Seattle, and then Las Vegas, and pretty much all of California. San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles, San Diego, Riverside. Charlotte, that kind of confuses me that there's more there than in Minneapolis, but
it may be a much bigger. Again,
maybe
metropolitan area is however they define that.
And I think Miami maybe that is a pretty liberal area, but I know there's a lot of Cubans, and Cubans tend to vote conservatively as well. There are a lot of those that came over legally. There are a lot that came over illegally, braving those waters because Castro made life terrible.
Again, Cubans, we had a special deal with their refugees escaping communism.
Right.
They weren't coming here to work at McDonald's. They were leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, a different set of circumstances, I think. Cubans actually have migrated north in Florida over the last generation, too.
Yeah.
We've seen big changes there. Their vote tends to be unpredictable.
Right.
I think the Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale area has had this problem for a long, long time, and their leaders have done nothing but make it worse.
Right.
Chicago's had this problem for a long, long time, and their leadership has done nothing but be a magnet for more of it.
Right.
So, and then I'm just flabbergasted by, a place like Chicago. I mean, when you've got a stranglehold on the government there, what is do you have to get 95% of the vote or 89? Does it really matter?
Well, and here's my thing.
Congressional proportions is another issue that they're probably
right. Congressional, but also eventually federal. And this is why, because if most of these go to these metro areas, and you're able to be in a state that all of a sudden tips the balances and gets rid of the electoral college, who rules the popular vote? The cities do, right? So if your cities are made up of mostly illegal aliens, well, not mostly, you know what I mean.
A percentage.
Most of the illegal aliens end up in these cities, is what I mean. And the cities are the ones that end up ruling the popular vote, and the popular vote is now how you figure things out. You win it all.
Yeah, I mean, if they cluster in California, New York, and Illinois, that changes nothing. But if it becomes, you're right, if it becomes the popular vote, if it becomes and illegals are allowed to vote, and the more incentive cities will have to bring illegals in. I mean, as dumb as that sounds, somebody's going to be like, well, if it's all the popular vote, we need more people. Right. We got to bring them in, or nobody presidential candidate's going to stop here again. Doesn't we need more housing and more transit and more? Well, we need that anyway. To them, but we need more social programs so we'll attract those low skill, low wage folks.
Right.
And I'll tell you what. There's states that the state of Texas is a state that. Interesting how the Hispanic vote is there, which is very different from a lot of other places. The Hispanics in Texas, they like having no income tax.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Texas is thought of as one of the leading Republican states in the and it is.
Yeah.
But I think pockets of it, people would be surprised to know. Especially Houston and Austin.
Oh, Austin.
The rest of the state is
strange,
the rest of the state is maybe different, but
down on the border, it's kind of blue as well.
It's purple down on the border. But what happens if Houston's like the 5th largest city in the country?
Yeah.
And Dallas is a little different, but Dallas-Fort Worth, there's millions of people there. Right. And when you break it down by city, forget metropolitan area for a minute. What if you've got a city of 15,000 that's a suburb of Dallas, and there's 500 illegal immigrants there, and all of a sudden they're allowed to vote? Yeah. What does that do for that mayor's race, or that school board race, or city council race, or county, or parish, or whatever they call it down there? I think that's Louisiana. But
yes.
What does it do for that race? How about the city next door that has 20,000 people, 10,000 registered voters, maybe? I mean, you are altering between illegal immigration and prisoners. And by the way, we talked about prisoners. We talked about the Department of Corrections. What about county jails?
Yeah. There are felons in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hazard County had a jail too. Andy Griffith had a jail.
They couldn't keep anybody in it.
Yeah, of course not. Not for half an hour.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mayberry had its own jail. There wasn't a lock on it.
Yeah.
But think of every county and city jail. I mean, if you're going to allow the worst felons the right to vote,
right.
How can you deny it from, like I said, somebody serving time for being late on their child support payments, or driving without insurance too much, or whatever a small felony would be?
And also, I mean, we would have to look at some of the juvenile correction facilities as well, and some of those that have committed felonies, especially if the Democrats get their way to institute a 16 and up voting measure. They're trying to change it all. I mean, it's illegal aliens. It is
voting age.
It is felons. It's voting age. It's the national popular vote. There is a full-out attack on the
ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting, yeah. There are so many different ways that they are trying to destroy the way that we elect people. They do not like what the Constitution laid out. They do not.
That's because they lose. They lose.
It is. Yeah.
Look at the lady in Georgia. Still thinks she won. What do you do with people who are that delusional?
Yeah.
But this is expanding their base. I'd like to know.
Yes.
I don't know the answer, but maybe it's something we ought to provide in a future episode. What is the total prison population plus illegal immigrants plus people from the ages of 16 and 17 in this country?
I have no
I mean, it could
idea.
be 20, 30 million people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's 11, supposedly according to Pew, the website you cited, there's 11.5 million illegal aliens. I don't know how we can count them all and that we can't do anything about it. And I don't know how many people are in prison. I don't know how many people are 16 or 17. There's got to be 5 million nationwide, maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that. What states are they? I mean, it can completely, again, and you know how they're going to go after this. They're not going to get this through federally, so it's going to go state by state, even though it's a violation of the Constitution. The Constitution says 18 and up.
Yes.
So, but, we know they don't care about that. The Constitution says the Electoral College. The Constitution talks about treaties, like we talked about in our last episode. And no one cares about that as long as the sole purpose is attaining power and control. And these folks don't care who they have to ramrod and run over.
Nope. And because nobody will stand up and do anything about it, nobody will stand up for the Constitution. Well, not nobody. You've
not
got
enough
guys like
people.
Mike Lee and those
Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and some people like that. But it's the exception, not the rule. It's everybody seems to be afraid to apply the law.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that. I'm lost at it. And like we talk about with things like Agenda 21, the propagandists are so far ahead of everybody else. It's like they have an army of people who just 24/7 work on this stuff.
Yeah.
And push it and push it and push it and push it wherever they can go. It's kind of like you spill a beer on a sidewalk and it goes in every little crack and crease and out on the grass and on somebody's dog's paws or whatever. And they track it everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. What do you call that? A metaphor?
Metaphor?
Did I just make a metaphor, or is that a simile?
No, that's not a simile.
It's not a simile? I don't remember.
No. Metaphor is like something that stands for something else.
I see.
So,
okay.
yeah, I think you're good.
So Bernie Sanders' bald head is like the shell of an egg. Would that be a good metaphor?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Or is
that
I'll lose my hair someday, too.
You're making a comparison. I think that's a simile.
Well, now I'm all screwed up.
Yeah.
I don't know. So.
Yeah. That extra English class I took in college is really paying off. So
you did that, and I read A Midsummer Night's Dream. You got the better end of it.
Oh, boy.
The movie wasn't out yet. I did have Cleveland notes, though.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, so yeah, that's what we're looking at, guys. I mean, there is an all-out attack on our election system.
The chaos. It's chaos.
It is.
Call it what it is.
We need people that are willing to stand up and do something about it. And yeah, I mean, one way is by being an election judge or, being a poll watcher or something like that in your precincts. That's a great thing to do. Don't get me wrong. We need people to do that. Absolutely. Another thing, we need people in the system that will stand up for the Constitution, that will stand up for the Constitution of the United States, that will stand up for the state Constitution.
I just thought of a good, I think it's a Bob Marley song.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Yeah.
Stand up for your rights.
Yeah.
Right? That's a reggae.
Reggae. Yeah. Reggae. Yeah. That's good.
I don't know why. It's just like you were about to sing it. That's what you were going to just go there.
I was. You had me pegged. Pegged. But, Bob Marley was right. You got to stand up for your rights. Because you know what? The longer that we let them do what they're going to do and we give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not going to do it, the further we fall behind. That's the way it works, because they are willing to do it. They're willing to do all of it, and they don't care about what you believe. They don't care about your outdated values. They don't care about you. What they care about is putting a structure into place that is going to maintain their power forever. They do not want to go back to the time of one income families and prosperity and freedom. And what they want is for everybody to be working, if not one job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs. They want your kids in childcare from cradle all the way up to adulthood, and they want to take care of you later in life so that they can tell you when your usefulness has ended and they can put you out to pasture permanently. It's all there in the communist playbook. It's all there. You know, this is the way that things have gone, and you just need to look to Europe and do a little bit of research to figure it out. These are people who are very serious, and you know what? You can sit and you can call us conspiracy theorists. You can say, oh, that's not happening. You can turn a blind eye, but you know what? If you actually open your eyes and look at it, if you do a little research, you cannot do that any longer, and you cannot be an honest broker of the truth and say that these things are not happening. It doesn't work like that. And so we need people who are willing to put forth a little effort and sacrifice for their country, for their families, for their children, in order to make sure that we preserve something in this country that is going to allow us to return to the values that we have enjoyed of freedom and of prosperity. It does not just happen, and it will not just happen on our own. Our kids are not being taught it in school. Our adults have long forgotten the lessons that the Cold War has taught us. And we've got a bunch of radicals from the hippie generation that feels like they have all the answers. And then we've got all these young kids coming up that have been taught by these hippies that socialism is the way to go. So you can take your chances. You can do nothing. And you can end up with nothing. But guess what? We're conservatives. We believe in pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps. We believe in creating a greater future by innovation and invention and by streamlining processes and being able to create something that has never existed. To be able to make things better. To be able to advance in technology. To be able to work hard. Those are the things that we believe in. So who's with me out there, and who's willing to work hard? Who is willing to put in a little extra time to make sure that this does not happen in their community? Who's willing to stand up and say, not in my backyard, not in my city, not in my town, not in my county? Where are you? Because I tell you, we're right here. You can get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we want to help you because we don't like what's going on across the state, and we are willing to put our skin in the game to make sure that you get the results that you want where you live. It's got us fit to be tied, but we can't do anything where you live. We can only do something where we live. But the best thing that we can do to help you where you live is to give you our knowledge, to give you real-world strategies and real-world education around what's actually happening, and then give you the tools to go out and make a difference. That's what it's come down to. So please, do yourself a favor. Reach out to us. Share this podcast far and wide, because it's this information that is going to begin to turn the tide and is going to arm you to be able to face your city councils and your county boards and your school boards and make a difference. Once they know that you know what they're up to, they're put on notice. They're put on notice. So we're headed back to the shack. We're going to come up with another topic to blab about next week. But don't you let this go. This is your moment. And if it passes us by, you will not get another moment. We're here for you. And we love you, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to get to work.